The Construction Playbook Podcast with Pagabo in partnership with the Open University.
New people coming into the industry can only choose the qualifications that are currently there, and they haven't moved with the times. What does the industry actually want to see to train the people coming onto their sites doing the jobs that they need them to do?
Welcome to the Construction Playbook Podcast with Pagabo in partnership with the Open University with me, Gerard Topless, the Group Chief Executive of Pagabo. There are many challenges that face our sector, and today we're talking about training, not just for today but also for the future. The Construction Playbook tells us we must harness skills to ensure our collective success. But how do we do this? How do we align what we do, how we do it, where we do it, and also why we do it?
The Construction Playbook Podcast.
So today I have with me Jan Grant, the MD of ProQual Awarding Body, and Jane O'Leary, Strategic Advisor and Education Lead for ISG Construction. So then, Jan and Jane, a quick statistic for you. Some 40,000 people sign up to construction courses each year, but only 10,000 ever make it. And that is a disgrace in my opinion. So Jan, what do you think?
I absolutely agree with you, Gerard. But if we don't do something, it will carry on like that. I suspect this has been going on for some time. And I think we need to look at where they're coming from and why they're being put onto these courses that they are subsequently leaving.
And Jane?
I think just for me is trying to fundamentally understand, is it the courses? Is it construction? Why are we getting such a drop off, that we're only getting 1 in 4 people actually coming through into the industry, an industry that absolutely needs, everybody in it. So I think for me, that's the fundamental bit, is to try and understand, is it the training that's wrong? Is it that we're selecting the wrong people to come in the first place? Or, do we need to look at the whole thing again, to look at how we recruit and how we train for the industry going forward?
Okay, so let's unpick that. James made a good point there. Is, the whole attract people, retain people in our industry, in fact in any industry, but in our industry, people don't seem to think the industry is sexy, cool, trendy. They want to do digital stuff, they want to do all these other things. What do we think we need to do? Is it, am I right or am I wrong? But what do we need to do to try and make it more attractive?
Yeah, I agree completely with you. I think as an industry, we're pretty rubbish at selling ourselves. We have a fantastic industry with loads of opportunities, but what we don't do is we don't sell that. So we don't come together collectively as professional bodies, as industry, as the training providers, to come as a uniform group to be able to sell what construction is. If you speak to most school children today and ask them what they think construction is, they will think of it as just, as a bricklayer or as a plumber, as those site trades. And as an industry, we've got so much more to offer. We need those trades, absolutely, but there's a whole wide breadth of things. If we just look at the digital side with how the industry is changing, but we need to get those people to come and join us, don't we?
Yeah, okay. So let's just, you mentioned something there. Right at the beginning of what you said, it reminds me of a saying that I often use, which is construction is moving, or life for young people is moving to a life of careers, not necessarily a career for life. And having short bursts of qualifications might make us more attractive as an industry. Jan, do you see that as well, the whole life of careers thing?
Oh, absolutely. And I think Jane made a very good point earlier about getting the message across to young people about what opportunities there are, particularly within construction. And I think there's 2 things here. I think one is we all need to get the message into schools, into young people about opportunities and careers, and how you access those careers doesn't always have to be a strict academic route. But the other point I would like to make is, of these 40,000 young people that are on courses, of which only 10,000 ever make it, I think you've got young people within schools that are disaffected from the core curriculum And they don't opt to go onto these courses. They are sent to colleges to go on these as an alternative to following a strict core curriculum. They don't want to be there. They are put there for probably all the wrong reasons, and they do all the same thing. For example, a college may just say, right, you all in a classroom, you build this wall, we're teaching you how to do bricklaying, and then at the end of the day, we knock the wall down ready for the next group that come in. It's soul destroying. How is that insensitising young people to have a career? That's not a career. That's not even an opportunity. That's my opinion.
Okay, so you've given us that perspective from an awarding body. So you see a lot of people, Jan, a lot of young people and a lot of ITPs and independent training providers. But Jane, is that what you're seeing? I mean, you're a major contractor in the UK. You have people who do lots of different skills. Are you seeing Jan's problem?
So we probably see it from a different side, in as much as that we're seeing then some of these young people that maybe come through onto the site that are disaffected, if they've got that far. And I think that's part of this, that a lot of those disaffected young people probably don't even get as far as seeing a real site. And I think that's a real problem that we've got with some of our training courses, that people are full-time in college and don't necessarily ever see what that wider world of work is. And that's something that's really important for us in ISG, is allowing young people to site, into the offices, to actually see what it's all about, because training is just one part of your career, isn't it? It's really important to get those people onto sites to see what it is all about, and maybe then we can help some of those that are the most disaffected and retain them in the industry. I think there's also that we also need to look at attracting the absolutely brightest students into construction, whereas a lot of those A-star type of pupils will be automatically looking to be a doctor, surgeon, and not thinking about construction. But we need absolutely everyone, and that's where construction is great, because it is absolutely inclusive. We need everybody to play their part and be part of, that team that delivers whatever that project is. So that's the bit we've got to sell, I think.
Yeah. Okay. So interesting point there. The bright students, and, I think in educational terms, they're often referred to as gifted and talented. I mean, I just look at some of the courses. If you take Jan's point about, building a wall and knocking it down and starting again, I'm not so sure the gifted and talented students are going to be really up for that. So, they have a different view. They use digital. They are more aligned to shorter burst qualifications. So if we are to do that, Jane, what do we need to do? Does the whole curriculum need to change? Does it need to be? I mean, I find a lot of the longer courses, the vocational or the NVQs, 2 years, that is going to be very, very boring for somebody. So how do we address it? Do we make them shorter? Do we include digital?
And I think it's got to be that mix, isn't it? I think young people today expect a mixed economy of whatever it is. So we certainly need to become more digital, even on our trade courses. Because if you just look at how we do something as simple as snagging on site now, that's being done by using systems like Snaggar with the iPad, going around, take a photo of it. So in absolute everything that we do, we've got that digital world. But on our, bricklaying courses or carpentry and joining, are we actually including digital on those? Are we showing people, those types of innovation and technologies? I don't think we are. And that's something that we absolutely need to be doing to keep these people engaged.
Yeah. So what you're talking about there, Jane, and I'll bring Jan in a second, is matching the way people need to learn with the way people want to learn. Because if we don't do that, they will learn differently and they will choose other careers in other sectors, because that's how they want to actually learn. So Jan, construction, you've been in construction for many years, you've set a lot of qualifications in that. Has there really been a change from, say, 20 years ago? Question for you, why does it take 2 years for a bricklayer to become a bricklayer?
Because the courses are so set, and if I may use the word archaic, they haven't changed in years. There's a term that's commonly known in my world of training and education and the way the qualifications are delivered, not just in construction, but everywhere. It's called blended learning. And I'm not sure that everybody has embraced that phrase. Blended learning is supposed to be a variety of ways in which you learn and gain that knowledge and understanding. Part of it should be demonstration, part of it can be classroom-based, part of it can be digital. The word digital hasn't been explained particularly within the construction industry, and how a digital approach can be brought into construction learning. And I think that's one thing. I think it's education of certain aspects and people within the industry as to how to embrace digital learning and what it can look like in the future. And I think that's a really important point that needs to be brought in. But yes, the term NVQs, actually, there aren't any NVQs anymore. NVQs went out a long time ago. We have had the QCF framework. We have now got the RQF framework. NVQs don't exist except in the construction industry. And there's where we could make a start.
All right, there's a couple of points on that. I just want to unpick a couple of those. The first one is the blended learning and innovation. So the construction playbook does talk a lot about innovation in everything we do. So training and people and skills is certainly, shouldn't be overlooked, because innovation can be very, very positive in that environment. The other point about the archaicness and your point about NVQs particularly are really resting in construction and not in other areas. That brings an interesting point for me, because if you look at construction, it's several hundred years old. It's a big industry, employs a lot of people and a lot of companies, but we still do things the same way and expect different results. If you were to look at other industries, more modern approaches, people do much shorter skills, and they have a portfolio of skills and a portfolio of careers to match their own aspirations. So I actually agree with Jan's point. But Jane, just seeing it from the contractor's perspective, do you feel the same? And if so, what do you think we should do as an industry to try and change that?
I think, as Jan said, blended learning, what does blended learning look like? And I think what we need to be doing is looking at industry and where industry can align with, the FE sector to help them with this. Because I feel some of the issue that we've got is that we've got a lot of lecturing staff out there that are teaching these youngsters that were on construction sites and in construction 30 years ago. They haven't kept pace with how the industry is changing. And if we just look at how we're using, Matterport, 3D imaging, along with our BIM, at every level now we're seeing this used within the industry. But are we actually teaching our students that? Is that in the courses? And as we say, some of those courses are written in a very, very traditional manner, and that they need to be aligned with how the industry is. And, in some ways we're a fast moving industry, and in lots of ways we're a very slow moving industry. And what we've got to try and do is trying to align those together. So that's where I think the playbook is absolutely key to this on all sides, on us as a major contractor, but also on clients and on other training providers, isn't it? Because this gives us a great platform to do something different. And that's what we should be looking at. So how should we be training our future tradespeople? What skills do they actually need? And if we look at the whole green agenda and where we're going with net zero carbon, with decarbonisation, we're going to need a whole set of new skills. So we've got a real good opportunity. And as an industry, we absolutely need to take that. So we need to look at what are we delivering and how we're delivering it so that we can absolutely engage with these young people.
So let's just unpick what you said there. You talked about the trainers, which I thought was a really interesting point. Obviously, technology and the use of digital is fantastic. Mobile technology, and is great for the training course. But if the trainers don't have the skills or are not comfortable with it, then that's a problem. So it sounds like we need to unpick it from the beginning. And I asked the question, as a massive industry, as a big sector, is the problem the industry, or is the problem the industry bodies? And I don't mean that to be, over challenging on it. But we've known about this problem for many years. So why are we not changing? We have such a massive sort of £100 billion sector. Why can we not make those changes? Because you made a point at the end there, Jane, which I think I want to bring back as well, which is the whole green agenda. I see it a bit wider than that. It's not just the green agenda, it's every possible agenda or investment the government wants to see. Okay, they talk about levelling up. Levelling up doesn't mean just geography. It means skills, it means social, it means a whole host of things. And over the next few years, as we come out of the pandemic, we will have new investments, new skills are required. And we are moving at a much faster pace now. And if the industry bodies and the industry don't move at the same pace, we will be left behind. Am I right in that? So it's not just about inflexibility, it's possibly the pace of change. And should we be looking at changing the way we deliver these qualifications? Jan?
Yes, that's an absolutely spot on point. I think we need to go back to why have we changed from NVQs and what has the industry actually got available to it at the moment? Well, what they've got is NVQs that were established many, many years ago, and they have barely changed over the years. So the industry can look to qualify its people coming in, whether young people or more mature people, it really doesn't matter. But new people coming into the industry can only choose the qualifications that are currently there, that have been there for many years. And they haven't moved with the times. What we should be doing is using the frameworks that we've now got set up, and the RQF was set up, in my opinion, to be led by industry. What does the industry actually want? What do they want to see as qualifications available to train and qualify the people coming onto their sites doing the jobs that they need them to do? And jobs is very specific. I'm talking there about job role specific qualifications. We need an absolute pick and mix of qualifications designed specifically for today's construction industry. Whatever they want, as an awarding body, that's my job to develop them.
Okay, so I'll just bring you in a second then, Jane, on that point, because I'm of an age where I remember the Panini sticker book for every World Cup or Euro Championships, and you would get your stickers and you'd sort of stick them in there. And I'm just wondering if that's the way education or learning or skills should go. Certainly in our sector, I'll learn about remediation cladding, I'll learn about renewables, I'll learn about bricklaying, I'll learn about this, but I also learn about mental and health well-being, I learn about health and safety, I learn about future skills and agility. Do you see that as a way forward, Jane? Would that work in contracting?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And really, that's what, if you look at professional bodies, so really that's how they work around CPD, isn't it? Because you collect your sticker, whether it be in the form of a CPD hour or whatever that adds to that. So, I don't see why we couldn't take that same approach with our tradespeople, and then we're properly looking at learning for life then, aren't we? That you've got your passport of various qualifications that you've done throughout your career, whatever that may be, and whatever twists and turns that might take. So I think that would be a very good approach to take if we could look at some type of, passport that qualifications were put on, and that goes with the person then throughout their career.
Okay, so I really like the passport idea. It's easy to understand for the students and for the organisation. So I do think that's a good approach. So let's just move that on a little bit. If you look at the way the industry has looked at, say, inductions, if you go back 20, 30 years ago, there was a big push to try and control inductions around CSCS cards and sort of equivalent sort of qualifications. But now contractors, their inductions are so much stronger than they used to be. In fact, they are very, very specific. They deliver everything. Sometimes some of these other qualifications don't. Let's move that forward into competency and the passport approach. If I've learnt a skill, how do I actually know it's that individual? Or how do I present myself, should I say, to you, Jane, as a contractor, to demonstrate it's Gerard here who, is competent at laying bricks or doing remediation? Because at the moment, it's very much driven by a test. Do we feel some sort of, using modern technology, video, audio, that sort of approach is much more akin to demonstrating competency? Do you see that? I'll bring you in a second, Jan. But Jane, from a contractor, do you see that as something that would be a good idea?
I think it is a good idea. I don't think the test has to be a physical test. But from a contractor viewpoint, it's about how we would have the resource to check that. The same as in any industry with anybody. The only reason that you have a qualification is that somebody's done that check for you, haven't they, before they've come to you that says that they can do whatever it is that they can do. But why we're not using that, with outside assessors coming in to check that, whether it be through that digital form, and then they've still got that sticker in their book that says, they're competent to do this, that, so that as an employer, when those people are coming to site, at first glance, I've got an understanding and a range of their competencies, which I can then work on and help them develop.
And technology, Jane, would be brilliant to that.
Yes.
I could, I'm a student, I can demonstrate to my supervisor that I can do X, Y, or Z. I upload it onto my passport, whatever my passport is, and that'd be an industry sort of approach. And then when I get on site, when I've done my induction, boomf, your guys immediately know what I can and can't do. And they know it's me as well.
Yes.
So Jan, I know you feel passionately about the competency piece. How would you see it going? Am I right? Do we need to evolve it more? What's your view on why would it benefit the industry as well?
Oh, because I think it would be very cost effective. I think it would minimise the risk of fraud, particularly within the construction industry at the moment. Jane's absolutely right. Whatever we develop qualifications, or whether individuals use existing qualifications, the assessor ratifies the competency as they go along. Now, delivering vocational qualifications often means that they are observed on site actually doing the job. They have a professional discussion with their assessor describing how they've done a particular task. If those aspects, those competencies were recorded at the same time that the assessor was delivering the qualification, uploaded and became part of your passport, then a contractor would be able to see authenticity from this is you who's actually done the qualification and demonstrated, and they can see you doing the main competency tasks. I'm not talking about a long film that they have to watch, but snapshots of somebody actually. If I have to dig a hole in a particular way, the crucial part of that is recorded and uploaded, and the contractor can immediately see, there we are, there's Joe Bloggs digging the hole. I can see he's shored it up or whatever he's supposed to be doing. I'm good to go. That job role specific qualification has been delivered, and I am assured that he's competent to do the job. Welcome onto my site. Then that's as simple as that.
Yeah. So I suppose the question then is, who needs to foster change? We seem to be slow to adapt, and that may present long-term structural people issues for our sector, which causes a problem for our society, in my opinion, if we can't attract and retain talent. So is it government? Is it the industry bodies? Is it industry? We covered this a little bit earlier, Jane. You did say we needed to be a collective, but very often you do need to have a few people to start the race. So who would that be?
I just think, if we look back at the beginning of the pandemic and how quickly and agilely as an industry we got so that we could operate in safe sites and safe systems of work. So I think that showed when we really want to come together as an industry through the Construction Leadership Council, through Build UK, through whatever groups, we came together and we decisively made change, didn't we, to be able to continue as an industry. So I would perhaps put the question back, why can't we do that again? If we've got enough voices that want to make a difference, then that's where I think as a collective, we should be able to do that and make that change.
Yeah, your point about the pandemic is a very real one. We've lived through that, and I think the construction industry, you're right, came together exceptionally well because of the pandemic. My question is, okay, I'm not saying we're through the pandemic, but we're coming out the other side. I understand that. But will we sort of approach this problem in the same way as we did the pandemic? And that's the worry for me. I'm just, when I talk to some of the industry bodies and they talk about, well, we need to get everybody together and we need to look at some new structures and some new frameworks. Well, how long is that going to take? Well, it could take 2 or 3 years. Well, in 2 or 3 years, the world could have changed again. We'd be towards another government, the whole world could have changed. So I think the pandemic point is valid, Jane. But are we moving quick enough elsewhere, after the pandemic? Jan?
No, we're definitely not. I think it should be led by industry. And I think rather than have an approach where we have meeting after meeting after meeting deliberating how this could work, in my opinion, which might be a bit simplistic, but in my opinion, I think a proposal should be put to industry, the actual industry, not the bodies, but the industry, saying, these are opportunities you could have. If you want to have new qualifications developed for people coming into your industry, to bring those qualifications well into the 21st century with a digital approach, with the construction playbook in mind, this is what we are proposing you could have, and you confirm that this is the way that you would like to go, or make some adaptations to it, and then we can develop a new structure going forward. But I think if we carry on just having meeting after meeting with an array of bodies and industry and training, and I think it will carry on going on like this for years.
Yeah. All right, okay, well, let's just try and summarise that, bring it back a little bit then, because I think you both made some fantastic points here. So, the passport approach, however it's sort of put together, the Panini sticker book or the passport, Jane has mentioned it, Jan's mentioned it, I've mentioned it, it's that sort of approach. It's clear that if we don't do something, we're going to have a problem. The qualifications, the skills are too boring, they're too academic possibly, there's not enough innovation. And the construction playbooks tells us we must harness skills, we must use innovation. Digital is throughout it, social value is throughout it, and all of these things sort of pointers in there. So, we need to have shorter, punchier qualifications. That life of careers, not a career for life. That seems to be the way forward. Because if we do that, we're aligning ourselves to the way younger people want to work. But I want to bring back Jane's point, because Jane made a very valid point. It's not just about the students. It's about the infrastructure around training as well. Because if the trainers don't understand or are a part of the solution, then they're part of the problem. So I think that's quite important. So calling it CPD, I think maybe we need to explore different vocabulary, Jane, because I think the whole CPD has sort of connotations. We need to probably come up with a different vocabulary. But the idea about maybe trying to try pilots and getting the industry to work, which is Jan's point, I think could be very, very powerful. So let's now, we've had a great discussion this morning talking about training and bringing it back into the playbook and using the playbook as that sort of blueprint really for what we should do. But I do have one final question for you both, because people are out there, using this hopefully to work on the training point that Jane made, not just for construction contractors, professionals, but also for clients. So what's your top tip, Jane, that you think our listeners need to consider, whether they're a client or a user? Just what is your top tip from the playbook and from the training side that we've talked about today?
I think for me, the playbook is all about collaboration. And for me, whether it's client side, contractor side, we need to collaborate in order to get the best for our young people and also for the industry. So I would say it's, clients and contractors talking to each other to make sure that we do get the skill sets and the training right in order as an industry to move things forward. Training needs to sit within the client side as much as it does within the contractor side.
But collaboration, I absolutely wholeheartedly agree. Pagabo is quite big into collaboration. We bring our professional service and our contractors together, as Jane knows actually, because you're on our frameworks. Jan, what's your top tip for our listeners?
Getting an education out there for the industries, in this case construction, but across pan-sector really, that industries have a marvellous opportunity nowadays to have what they want. They're leading the way forward, and they should be able to have a skill set of people coming into their industries that are trained within the 21st century, and in this case aligned to what the construction playbook is dictating. So it's education of opportunity available to industry.
Okay, and can I have a top tip as well? Am I allowed one? Hopefully I can.
Yeah, I guess.
Thank you very much. Thank you. For me, I like what Jane said. I like what Jan said. But for me, the big thing in my mind is it's a life of careers, not a career for life. And you have to split down qualifications. If you want young people to join our sector and stay in it, you cannot give them 2-year boring courses. We need to make it an agile, flexible environment, and training and skills is the driving point for that. So if we can do what Jane and what Jan said and have that life of careers, I think we will set ourselves up, because the statistic at the beginning is the big one: 40,000, 10,000. Well, we're losing 30,000 people a year just because we're not very good. If we address that, we would solve or address one of the largest problems we've got in people. So that's what we must remember. And the construction playbook helps us with that. So thank you very much, Jan. Thank you very much, Jane. Really enjoyed your company today. And this is Gerard Topless, Group Chief Executive of Pagabo. And thank you for listening to our Construction Playbook podcast with Pagabo in partnership with the Open University. Thank you.